Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. Dave Peltz, and with me is my esteemed colleague, Dr. Joe Hamlett. How are you doing today, Dr. Joe?
I'm doing pretty good, Dr. Dave, since you immediately turned into a game show host.
Hey, it's what I do in my spare time.
All right. Well, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Most excellent, most excellent. So we'd like to welcome our viewers and listeners to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, where Joe and myself contemplate saving the world every week. So today's topic for saving the world is going to be regroup to come back stronger. And that's probably, I think, one of our biggest titles. We thought about making it longer, but we pared it down to just that. So in our usual fashion, since one of us introduces, the other one gets to start off on the topic. And since I introduced, guess what, Dr. Joe? I'm throwing that hot potato over to you, which is
All right, man. Well, thank you. Well, that's a good topic. But what do we mean by regroup to come back stronger? So think about this. You interviewed for a position at your company, and you didn't get that position. It was awarded to someone else. So what's your options now? What can you do to potentially put yourself in a better position for the next time an opportunity comes up? So first of all, it probably starts with maybe getting some feedback from the interview panel or the interview team. And based on whether they provide you decent feedback or not, that's that opportunity for you to take some time to reflect on what they provided for you. And then from there, you can go back, regroup, work on those things that they might have suggested or recommended, and then come back for the next opportunity stronger. So that's what I envision for this topic is really taking a look at where you are or the circumstances, the situation you're in, evaluating where you are, just like our critical self-reflection is really along that same line. Take stock of where you are today, uh, and understanding what you need to do to come back stronger for that next opportunity. I also liken this to if you're a sports fan and you watch your favorite team. They first year they're pretty bad. The next year they get better, and then eventually they win a championship or get very close. It's because the same process. They figured out where they were, what they needed to work on, and they got back in the gym. They got back on the field and really started to work on those things that they know they needed to work on. And that's what the regrouping is to calculate where you are, figure out where you are, and then figure out what it looks like for success, and then start working on those things. So again, very similar to critical self-reflection, goal setting, those types of things.
yeah.
It's
I,
along
I
that
like that
same
you
line.
tied it into critical self-reflection, and I think the difference from critical self-reflection as we use it as a general term in our podcast is now we're really starting to focus that critical self-reflection into certain
Right. Yeah.
areas. It's one thing to critically self-reflect, and that's great. We need to do that. But there's also, once you understand what critical self-reflection can do for you, you can actually start narrowing the scope of that critical thought
Yep.
and that reflection into certain areas and really, really kind of shred things apart and go way down deep to figure out what's really at that core of that success or that challenge or that misstep or failure, if you want to call it that. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you're really trying to understand a single pinpoint out of all the stars that are out there that you could be reflecting on. So I like how
Absolutely.
you tied that into it.
Well, and it goes back to that being intentional piece,
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
very
Yeah.
very specific, like you said. That the critical self reflection practice is a practice we should do all the time,
Mhm.
but in this particular case, like you said, you're being very specific about it. You're being very intentional about, and you are narrowing the focus to
Mhm.
an event or an occurrence or something very specific, which, like you said, makes more
Very
sense.
similar to root cause analysis.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Again, just taking stock in everything that's around you, everything that you need to do, and then figuring out how to get there. So when I think of regrouping to come back stronger, that's what I think of. Even in my education journey, I had so many times when I felt like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to stop. And it took that, taking a pause, regrouping, figuring out what do I need to do to get back on track, so that I can, finish this. And that's where I was about halfway through. I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But I did. I took a pause, took a look at where I was and where I was still trying to go. And after that, I was able to realign, get focused again, and then come back stronger. So
Yeah, and the other piece I really picked up on that I liked where you were going and what you said was, not only the critical self-reflection, but narrowing it down to a few things to develop. And that gets back to our goal setting. We can go all the way back to goal setting and identifying what it is do you need to work on. And then once you identify what it is that you want, what do you need to do to get to the level that you want to achieve, whether it's beginner, intermediate, advanced, whatever. So digging down and understanding what you're really trying to go after, make better or improve is really important, because you've identified these things, you've done that, very focused, deliberate, critical self-reflection. That one area you've peeled back the onion, you've done your critical, your root cause analysis, and you've identified 4 things. Those are the 4 things you want to work on. So what do you need to start doing about that? And then you start building your plan and focusing on it. And I think that's important because it really does show a progress that you've established and that you're working towards. It reinforces the patterns of behavior that we talk about so much, about being deliberate and again having that focus and being able to regroup and come back stronger, and even in the good things. I mean, I talked to some of my clients about that, that job offer high when you get it. It's like, okay, settle down, Speedy. Just slow down, and don't get a ticket, and just pause for a moment. And then go back and look at that job offer to make sure everything is right, because you've got to regroup after the successes too. You don't want to miss anything small that you could have possibly overlook.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. To regroup, even in the successful events, like you said, getting that new job and being excited about it, and then stepping into that new position on Monday morning and thinking, oh crap, I've really got to focus on this. I've got to figure this out. Because now you're into territory that you may not be familiar with or not.
You got what you wanted. Now what?
Exactly. Now what do you do?
Now
And
what?
so I like the way you said it, that you still take that pause, you celebrate, but then you come back down to reality and start thinking about, okay, so
You got to
I'm
regroup and figure out
here.
how you're going to come back.
Absolutely. Now I've got to move this to the next level, or propel, or be successful in this. So that's a very good point that you bring up, that oftentimes we think about it's the failures or the missteps that we have to regroup. But you're right. This is a whole new environment potentially for you. So to regroup, maybe get all those things that you are aware of, are familiar with, align those with whatever this new thing is, so that you can have the best chance for success. So that is very important in this as well.
Yeah, and I've been seeing some posts online, and I can't remember who I said should cite for this quote, but it's something to the effect of, "You'll never fail if you don't try." And I think that's important, because you have to have these failures or these missteps or these, trips or falls or whatever, to be able to regroup, so that you can understand what you need to do to get that to that point of success, whatever that is. And then once you hit that point of success, again, you need to regroup. Otherwise, you're looking like a fool out there. You're getting penalized for dancing too much in the end zone or something. So regroup and figure out what you need to do to keep that going. So it's not just a one-time event that, was it luck? Was it, just coincidence? Was it just a one-time thing? What can you do to perpetuate that, to keep getting better and stronger? And again, regroup to come back stronger is such a huge thing. We're talking about offline. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool when you think about it. Again, talking about peeling back the layers and getting down to what's really at the bottom of it. And there's a lot that goes into this one. So it's important to understand that, just because we talk about one thing doesn't mean that you cannot actually put on a different pair of glasses and say, oh, well, I can also approach it from this angle. Yes, you can. It could be sports, it could be art, it could be entertainment, it could be podcasting, it could be, corporate America, it could be your own business, whatever. It could be school, it could be education, it could be family. What do you need to do to pause, regroup, to come back stronger? Because if you're in a relationship and something's not working, maybe you need to stop and regroup and figure out what's really going on. Own your mistakes, because that's half of it. You have to own it. You can't put the blame on anyone else. If something breaks and you're the only one in the room, you can't blame it on the walls for breaking it when you threw it, right? Through the object. So, you really have to do that self-assessment piece while you're critically reflecting, and take ownership for what you think you might have done that led to that mistake or misstep, or even to that success. So do you really understand what's going on? Because you can't just look at one side of things and go, oh, this was a complete failure. Well, maybe it was a complete failure, but you also learned something out of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be saying that's a complete failure. And if it was a complete success, you wouldn't know it's a complete success without understanding what those failures were to get to that success. So it really goes hand in hand, and you have to look at both sides.
Well, Dave, we've talked, about failure, success, but I also think about in terms of regroup to come back stronger. Think about, this podcast we have. We're providing tips, all this information for people. People are also going out doing self-help books and just programs to help them get there. So I think that's also an opportunity for people to regroup, to come back stronger, because again, now all this information that you're acquiring, that you are storing in your mental database, and then it comes down to, now how do I apply it? So again, all this information that you've taken in, even us, I think back with our education journey, working on our doctoral programs, and then all that information we learned, all that research we did, to earn this degree, but then what do we do with it after that? And I think, again, think about regrouping, taking that time now to reflect on everything I've learned, all the research I've done, and now applying it to real world, to real life. And I think that's helped me become better at what I do, because that's really what we did learn, is how to research, how to evaluate data, that analysis piece, and then turn that into something that we can work with. And now I get it, again, because before it was like, I'm working on a doctorate degree, but what am I going to do beyond that? And so I think that's an important piece as well, not just because based on failures or success, but gathering the information that you have, all the skills
it can
that
change.
you
Your
have.
motivation can absolutely change.
Absolutely.
And then when we started our doctoral programs, they asked us, why are you here? What are you going to do with this? And then at the end they said, why are you doing this? What are you going to do with it? And a lot of times the answers were completely different. We really assessed that why we thought we were doing it initially is not why we followed through and completed it. And what we thought we were going to do with it before is totally different than what we're going to do now.
And that's exactly where I was going with that. You made it a little bit clearer, but that's it. We started off for different reasons, but at the end of it, again, after all, the time spent and the reevaluation piece and the regrouping, figuring out what it really means. And so for me, that's why I say it's not just about success, failures, because we're at a point.
It's about choice, really.
It is, and it's almost like what we talked about. You are awarded that new position. Now, what do you do with it? And that's kind of the same thing for us. With once we finish, it's like people are still asking that question: what are you going to do with this? And at first, you're like, oh, I don't know, and until you sit down, take that time to regroup, to figure out all those things, and then to get really intentional about what you want to do with it. And again, even though I graduated in 2014, I'm still figuring that out. Still trying to make it stronger. And I think I do get stronger every day, because that's what I'm doing. Really trying to focus on where am I going with this?
And it's no different than when we're growing up and we want to get a certification or get a certain job or have a certain family goal, or go to school and get a degree or whatever. It's like
Right.
why are you really doing this? And sometimes we found out we're doing it because our parents wanted us to
Right. Yep.
become a this or that. And we're like, I don't want to be a this or that. I want to be this. And they're like, oh, what do you mean you're going to ruin the family? It's like, but are you
Mhm.
really ruining the family type thing? I mean, what is your real, why are you really doing what you're doing? And that's really at the core of this regroup to come back stronger. Because if you don't understand why you're doing something, or if you're doing something for the wrong reasons, that's that
Yep.
regrouping piece that we're talking
Absolutely.
about.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just draining
Yeah.
your essence or your soul or whatever you want to call it, for someone else's purpose, and it's just depleting you of everything that you are and who you want to be. So,
Right.
you really have to understand the why behind when you ask yourself, okay, I'm regrouping, but why am I regrouping? And that's exactly the question. Why are you regrouping? What adjustment do you need to make in your journey?
Right. Well, I think you brought up a very good point in the fact that a lot of times we are doing something for someone else,
Mm,
or aligned to someone else's goals and dreams, and it's not until, like you said, we ask that question: Why am I really doing this? I don't even like doing this. What? Why do I continue to go down this path? And that helps you, again, you get more intentional about what I'm trying to achieve, where I'm going, and then I can regroup. Again, don't discount or take anything away that you've learned in that process or gained. And that's why I
mhm.
always talk we always talk about the long scenic route. Yeah, we wish we could have had that, but at the same time, we wouldn't be where we are today without all the experiences that we've had previous to this.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, so even though we've regrouped many times, based on our
Yeah.
situations, we still can apply those things that have helped us in the past or shaped us in the past. But now we can align them to where they fit us better for the
Right.
future state or the thing we're trying to achieve. So I
Mhm.
think this is, again, full circle, that whole critical self reflection piece, that goal
Mhm.
setting, that understanding, your journey. Not, again, to hand someone a template or blueprint and say follow this and you're going to be successful. That's
Mhm.
not the idea behind this, because as you just said, a lot of times we're doing things for the wrong reasons. Because,
Mhm.
and you said it earlier before, about too, that it changes. You
Mhm.
go down the path, you think you're doing this for this reason, and then you learn, no, that's not the case anymore. It's
Mhm.
changed the reason I'm doing this.
Mhm.
So, yeah, regrouping encompasses a lot of different things. If fun that we've talked about on this podcast, and things we haven't talked about, but it's really just that piece of evaluating, assessing, data collection,
Mhm.
research, almost, again, like being a student again.
Mhm.
But that's really what it takes to help you understand how you get to that next level, how you come back stronger,
Mhm.
because you've taken the time, paused, uh, evaluated the inputs, whether they're negative, positive, or indifferent, but you've
Mhm.
taken the time to regroup, figure out what it all means before you progress and move to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty interesting when you think about it, because it's very similar to everything that we've talked about, just a slightly
Yep.
different focus. We're, instead of focusing on Jupiter, maybe we're focusing on, I don't know, the sun, and hope we don't burn our eyes or something like that. But it's just directing that telescope to a different spot and focusing in on that particular area. And that's really what we're talking about. And all these little pieces that go into regrouping to help you come back stronger are just that, they're just pieces, and all these pieces fit together like a puzzle. And it's not a confusing puzzle, otherwise Joe and I wouldn't be here, or at least I wouldn't be here. I mean,
No, no, I like that. Again, it's no different, like you said, than everything we talked about on our podcast. It's about gathering information. I don't know why I keep referring to that. I mean, I do like data. I do like numbers. I do like learning about things, and the more we learn about ourselves or about our situation, the better equipped we will be to make
Mhm.
the decisions that make sense for us.
Yeah,
Again,
absolutely.
we may think we're going down a certain path, but after we evaluate, I mean, me and Dave just went through the scenario last week. We thought we had the proper information, and it wasn't until we got the
till we
correct
regrouped
information
and
and
yeah,
regroup, we went back and
yeah,
said, oh, now it makes
yeah.
sense. And that's
Because sometimes you
really
misunderstand the situation,
absolutely.
and
So,
that's an ownership piece. It's like, well, maybe there's a piece of me that I need to focus on a little bit
right,
more, or did I evaluate this correctly, or did I look at it correctly? Was I
right.
really paying attention? Was I distracted by something
Yep.
else in my life, or at work? So you really, it's really big and important to again regroup so you can come back stronger, because some people don't regroup and then just say, forget about it, I'm out of here. And it's like,
Right.
well,
Right.
you didn't have to do that. It wasn't that type of situation. Don't make it bigger than what it is in a negative way. Just pause. We're human beings. We're allowed to make mistakes. Well, as long as they're not felonies, from what I understand. So anyways, what I'm saying. So
Right. Right.
you can, there is some gray area there that you can operate in, and that's pretty much called your life.
Right.
So however big, however narrow or wide that gray area is up to you, and you can actually make that gray area bigger by regrouping and understand what your options are. The gray area is not confusion, it's just that's your boundaries. That's
Right.
your lane on how you're living your life. So, and you can go outside those boundaries if you want. You just have to understand that it may take more effort, or there may be repercussions for it. But again, that regrouping is going to help you come back stronger, so maybe you can reach your goal sooner, or you know get into a better relationship, or get whatever it is that what's driving you to do what you're doing. It can help you get there sooner, because instead of just when we talk again, going back to critical self-reflection, you can critically self-reflect, and that's wonderful. We encourage you to, but to narrow that down like a microscope, or to find a pinpoint spot like with a telescope, that's really what you're doing in the exercise. You're taking that critical self-reflection and making it very narrow and specific to really get down to the core of things.
Well, Dave, we talked a lot about, at the personal level, but
Mhm.
and we did touch on professional a little bit, like job promotion and things like that. But I want to throw it in terms of, you face a situation at your organization. So you have an issue that pops up, say on the manufacturing floor,
Mhm.
and you jump through hoops, get it resolved, but you really do a band-aid
Mhm.
just to get it, fixed for the moment or for the time being, so you don't lose a lot of time. This is a perfect opportunity for you to, now that you've got the machine up and going or running again, now go back, regroup, figure out, okay, now start looking at those variables that might have caused that
I like where
problem.
you're going with this, because
Yeah.
it's that temporary, and that's the key word, like you
Yep.
said, temporary solution.
Right.
All you're doing is buying a little extra time, and
Yep.
that little extra time is what you're referring to, and I love it. I
Absolutely.
love it.
Yeah. And so that gives you that opportunity to, pull the proper people together, get, start to really evaluate, okay, how can we make this where it's not a band-aid? How can we make
Hmm.
this a long term
Hmm.
fix or resolution to this existing problem? And so
Hmm.
that's again how you can apply this to the work environment. You see a situation, again, you get it up and going, whatever it is, to in a safe manner,
Hmm.
and then come back and okay, now let's get it to where it's solid. Let's build a process. Let's do what we need to do to eliminate, minimize those variables, and so that we can have a more robust process that we don't have to worry about down the road as much as we do in today's state. So again, that's an example of how you can apply this to
Hmm.
a working environment.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like it a lot. So we're getting kind of close. Um, any final thoughts, or what are your final thoughts, I should say?
Well, again, everything we talk about, I think it really relates to a lot of things we've talked about previously. Regrouping to come back stronger is another way of saying being more intentional about your critical self reflection. I
Mhm.
mean, we should be doing that all the time, just to, again, to check our status, check to see where we are, see if we're going down the right path. But this is, regrouping to come back stronger is just being more intentional about it. Maybe it's a specific situation or circumstance, like we mentioned before. It could be a positive, it could be you're got a promotion. Now you got to really take a look at, okay, what does that mean? or
Mhm.
it could be it was, a failure,
Yeah.
in that you didn't get
You're
something.
down at halftime. What do you do to come back stronger the second half?
Absolutely. That's what the coaches
Did I
do.
say
They
that
go
right?
into
Because
the
I
lock.
don't know sports.
Yeah, you're down by a field goal, or a touchdown at halftime, and then you see that team come back and they're just fired up because
Mhm.
they took a look at the tape and see how they can improve things. They regrouped and came back, and hopefully they win the game. So that's what it's
Mhm.
about, really taking stock of where you are, still where you want to go, and then figuring out how you're going to get there. So
Right. Yeah, that's well, I'm not even going to add to that because that was awesome. So with that, we would like to thank our viewers and listeners for tuning into another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. If you like what you heard or liked what you saw, because we're so handsome and adorable, like, follow, share, and let someone else know if they could benefit from one or more of our episodes. That's what it's about. We're trying to give back and share this wisdom and knowledge, so you too will not have to take the long, scenic, painful route unless you decide you want to.
absolutely.
So with that, again, thank you for joining us, and keep on being your not so ordinary you.